us host a great listening session in the Central Valley in
California.
California. Mr. Costa for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, and it was a good listening session that we had with the committee and those members that were able to attend. I think we were able to pick up a great deal of information. I think when we look at today's topic on uncertainty, regulations, and inflation impacting the farm country, I'm reminded of the fact of a third-generation farmer that, the ebb and flow over decades, certainly uncertainty is always a question, and change is constant in farming for sure. The regulatory structure, I think, continues to be challenging, and it varies from region to region, state to state, as well as on the federal level. But it's important that we raise these issues and we hear from leading agricultural organizations about the impacts on the farm country, because representing a very significant farm area in California and a third-generation farmer, I understand and hear these every day. And I remind people two things. One, food is a national security issue. It's a national security issue. And I think maybe with the impact, sadly, of the pandemic, people, when they saw shortages on shelves, maybe began to understand that the food that they enjoy every night, may come from a grocery store from their favorite restaurant, but that's where they get it. That's not where it comes from. It's hardworking farmers, ranchers, dairymen and women, and farm workers that frankly put that food on America's dinner table every night. The second thing I think is important for the purpose of this hearing is, and I say this all the time, going back to my years in Sacramento, farmers are price takers, not price makers. And people think, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean, you put all those input costs throughout a year into your crop. And so you're, at the end of the year, you may have X invested in that crop, but the price that you're getting is Y. And you can say, well, I can't make it with Y because I lose money. I need something else. Well, the fact of the matter is you're a price taker. You don't have the ability to set the price for your inputs. And that's important to note when we think about the Farm Bill this year and the safety net that it provides for American farmers and ranchers, and also for the nutrition programs as well. And I'm thankful that many of you have mentioned the importance of the nutrition programs. One of the things we haven't talked about in terms of the security and the impacts we've seen under the regulatory and supply chain effort is the impacts that we've seen when our food supply chain was turned upside down. It resulted in a bipartisan effort in the Ocean Shipping and Reform Act, which Congressman Johnson and I and Garamendi moved forward. It was implemented, signed into law and implemented now. And we're looking at this critical piece of legislation. Mr. Friedman, I'd like to thank you for your participation in this. Can you explain the impacts of holding global shippers accountable so that we can stabilize the input for prices, getting back to price takers and price makers? You know, one of the key things is in California, 44% of our agriculture is exported. And so this had a real havoc in terms of our ability to export and our prices. Could you please comment?
Thank you, Congressman Costa. I began my testimony by thanking our heroes here, Congressman Johnson and yourself, in this committee for accomplishing probably the greatest benefit for U.S. agriculture in foreign markets that has been accomplished in at least 2.5 decades here with the Ocean Shipping Reform Act last year. It kept the U.S. and it will keep the U.S. exporters in the foreign markets. And if I could say this, I've heard from many members that, well, I represent small farmers and they don't export or they sell to producers or brokers. How does this impact them? Guess what? During the pandemic, as you know, because some of your constituents were unable to get the products exported to the foreign market, they couldn't get it on the ships. what happens to that product? It just gets dumped onto the U.S. market, and that's the market that the smaller
Right.
companies that don't
And,
export.
and we had markets, but we couldn't get a consignment to put the product on the ship to get it to market. Quickly, we're looking at reintroducing the Ocean Shipping Antitrust Enforcement Act. How do you think that could help out? And
I think it can help out by recognizing the consolidation that has been spoken about today in ocean shipping. There are now 10 ocean carriers left in the world, and they're consolidating further into those 3 alliances. And, if we don't have an ability in the U.S. government, which we do not now under current law, have the ability to review those proposed consolidations before they happen, they're going to just continue, and pretty soon we're going to be down to no competition for the U.S. export commerce.
well, thank you. My time's expired, Mr. Chairman. This is something that I think we need to work on in addition to the Farm Bill this year, and I look forward to our continued effort.